Hi there, my name is Lynn Krozik, also known as Fibra Artista, and what I want to show for you today is the demo that I did at International Quilt Festival at the 2010 show in Rosemont, Illinois. I was honored to be asked back for a second year by Cloth Paper Scissors to participate in their open studios on the floor, and the demo that I did was printing with thermofax screens. I was surprised at how intimidated people said they were by it, so I thought that I would do a demo to show you how to print with them. Here we have some examples of different kinds of fabric. This video is going to be geared towards how I print, which is to make fabric for art quilts or wall art, but all of the principles apply. So if you're a DIYer that likes to print tote bags and t-shirts and pretty much anything that will stand still, all of the same printing rules apply. One thing I would like to show you, first we're going to start by talking about preparing your work surface. What I've done is I have a work table in my studio, and my studio is pretty small, so I can't really have a permanent print table. So what I do is I cut open a black garbage bag and tape it down so it doesn't move, and then I take a heavier piece of fabric and put that on top of. This is, I think it's denim, I'm not entirely sure, but it works well. And what happens is that the plastic will protect your table from any paint or dye or anything that you're printing with that happens to go through the fabric. This particular fabric is not what we're printing on. It's just an added level of protection that will help absorb any excess paint or dyes or whatever it is. The demo that we're going to do today is printing with just basic screen printing paint. You can do all kinds of different kinds of printing. You can use thickened dyes, you can use resist. Anything that's pretty much water-based and will be washed out of your screens easily can be used. I want to show you a couple examples of fabric that I've printed. I tend to print on anything. You don't necessarily have to use PFD fabric, which is prepared for dyeing. This particular fabric back here is a commercial print that I've had in my stash forever, and just sort of jazzed it up with a screen. So you can see that you can actually, if you've got a lot of commercial prints in your stash that you haven't been able to figure out what to do with, this is a really good way to alter them and add some layers on top of it. I also like to print on hand-dyed fabric. This one right here is black, and this print is with a screen by Leanne Meixner. She's a wonderful artist. She has kind of a graffiti style and does a lot of different skulls and just really fabulous things. It works really well. I wanted you to see that you can print on colored fabric as well as just plain white. I think that's a really important thing. Your paint color may shift a little bit, which means it may not look as true as it does in the bottle. This particular one, it was printed with this lime green called Apple Teeny, and it's not quite as bright as it would be if I printed it on white, but I still really like how it looks. So these are examples of printing on colored fabric so that, you don't have to print on just plain white. I will caution you, if you decide that you're going to go ahead and you want to screen print but you also want to dye something, do all of your dyeing first. The reason I say that is because these paints, while they're permanent after they're heat set, they are water soluble, so I don't really know how they would behave especially if you're doing low water immersion and the fabric's going to be sitting in liquid for a long time. So if you plan on doing multiple layers on your fabric and you want to do, printing and, any kind of work with dyes where it's going to be sitting in liquid for a long time, I would do that layer first, and I would do this as a final layer. On that note, here's a piece of fabric I wanted to show you. This is a piece of linen that my friend Kate Lebowski tea-dyed, and she generously gave me a piece to experiment with. These marks here are soy wax batik, and then I took one of my screens, thermofax screens, and did this coppery pattern on it. And after I removed all the soy wax and put it through the washer, you can see that it just left marks, which is what I wanted. I wanted to create kind of a graffiti sort of grungy look. So I just wanted to show that it works well on all kinds of fabric. I'm just going to be showing you how to do it on cotton because that's what I use the most. But if you don't want to do cotton, if you want to do silk or linen or other things, it is possible. So let's talk a little bit about paints first because that's really important. You want to make sure that you use screen printing paint, and I can't stress this enough. Screen printing paint is paint that stays wetter longer. That's the easiest explanation that I have for it. If you use any of your regular acrylic craft paint, even if it's a really good brand like Golden or Liquitex, it has a very short dry time compared to screen printing paint. And what that's going to do is it's going to clog your screen and it could potentially ruin it. I know some people that say they print with regular acrylics and they're able to wash it out, but I really, really strongly urge you not to do that because you don't want to ruin your screen. There's no reason to take the chance to do it when there's so many different screen printing paints on the market. You want to make sure that you use one that's intended for fabric if that's what you're printed on. Speedball does make a brand where or a version of their screen printing paint that you can use for paper. So there are some for different surfaces if that's what you're interested in. My personal favorite is this one. It's Plaid. The company's name is Plaid, and it's Simply Screen. I use this paint the most, and this is what I sell in the Etsy store. It's really easy to use. The squeeze bottle is convenient, and when I show you how to print in a minute, you'll understand why I like it. And it comes in a lot of different colors. And if you don't see a color that you particularly like, it's very easy to mix. One thing I like about it too is their metallics are not super shiny. I like metallic, but I don't like a lot of sparkle in my work. So these give you a metallic feel, but they're not so over the top that you feel like that's all that stands out on your work. So remember, use screen printing paint only when you're using this. There's directions usually on the back of the bottle of how to care for your print. Most of them are heat set. It's just as simple as running over them with an iron, and then they become permanent. I have done wash tests on these. I don't normally wash my work because most of my stuff ends up on the wall, but they are washable. So I would still go easy on them and maybe use a gentle cold cycle rather than putting them through some kind of brutal heavy-duty load, but these are permanent once you heat set them. The other thing that I want to talk to you about are the different tools that you can use to pull your paint across the screen. There are a few different options. This is the standard squeegee, and you can kind of see by how not dirty it is how often I actually use this one. It's a good tool, and if that's what you're used to using, by all means use it. I'm not going to tell you there's any right way to do it. You use whatever tool is best for you. When I do a lot of screen printing that's not thermofax screen printing, the more traditional screens, I tend to use this one a lot. It's just a scraper from a hardware store, and it's plastic. So it's an inexpensive way. It's cheaper than the traditional squeegees, which is good. The only thing is, make sure you use a plastic one. Don't use a metal one. And since these are so inexpensive, I would really suggest buying a new one, because you never know what kind of gunk could be on it if you just pull it out of the garage or whatever it's been used for. You probably don't want it on your screen. So that's one option. The option that I like and I use the most is sponge brushes. I just think they're more comfortable for the way I like to print, and I'm actually going to show you two ways to print, but this is what I use for my method. And you'll notice that it's shorter than how the brush comes when you buy it. These are 1.5 inch wide sponge brushes, and what I do is I go ahead and I cut off the tips of them. And the reason I do that is because there's a cardboard insert inside, and I don't know